Today, we're going to tell you the incredible story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who survived not one, but two atomic bombings during World War II. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was born on March 16, 1916, in Nagasaki, Japan. He grew up in a peaceful and prosperous city, famous for its shipbuilding industry and cultural heritage. He studied engineering and joined Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in the 1930s, where he worked as a draftsman designing oil tankers. In the summer of 1945, he was sent to Hiroshima for a 3-month-long business trip. He and his colleagues had been working hard on a new project, and he was looking forward to returning home to his wife, Hisako, and their infant son, Katsutoshi. On August 6, he was preparing to leave the city with his co-workers, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato. He had packed his bags and was on his way to the train station when he realized he had forgotten his hanko, a type of identification stamp common in Japan. He decided to go back to his workplace to get it, while his friends waited for him at the station. That decision probably saved his life. At 8:15 a.m., he was walking towards the docks when he heard the drone of an aircraft overhead. He looked up and saw an American B-29 bomber flying over the city. He also noticed a small object falling from the plane, attached to a parachute. He didn't know what it was, but he had a bad feeling about it. He quickly dove into a ditch and covered his eyes with his arms. A few seconds later, he felt a blinding flash of light and a deafening boom. He was hit by a shock wave that lifted him from the ground and threw him into a nearby potato field. He had just witnessed the first atomic bomb ever used in warfare. The bomb exploded about 3 kilometers, 1.9 miles, away from him near the center of Hiroshima. It unleashed a devastating blast that destroyed most of the city and killed tens of thousands of people instantly. It also emitted intense heat and radiation that burned and poisoned many more. Yamaguchi was lucky to be alive, but he was badly injured. His face and arms were covered with burns, and both his eardrums were ruptured. He couldn't see or hear anything for a while. He felt like he was in hell. He slowly regained his senses and crawled out of the ditch. He saw a mushroom cloud of fire rising in the sky over Hiroshima. He also saw a scene of horror around him. Buildings reduced to rubble, fires raging everywhere, people screaming and dying. He tried to find his way back to his workplace, hoping to find his colleagues. He walked through the chaos and carnage for hours, dodging falling debris and avoiding corpses. He finally reached the Mitsubishi shipyard, where he found Iwanaga and Sato. They had also survived the blast, but they were shocked to see him. They spent the night in an air raid shelter nearby, along with other survivors. They had no food or water, and they suffered from thirst and pain. They also feared another attack from the Americans. The next day, they decided to leave Hiroshima and return to Nagasaki. They heard that some trains were still operating, so they made their way to the station. They had to cross several rivers on their way, and at one point Yamaguchi had to swim through a layer of floating dead bodies. They finally boarded a train that took them to Nagasaki. The journey lasted all day and night, and they arrived on August 8. Yamaguchi was relieved to be home, but he was also worried about his family. He hoped they were safe and well. He managed to contact his wife by phone and told her what had happened. She was overjoyed to hear his voice and told him she would come to pick him up at the station. She also told him that their son was fine. They had a tearful reunion at the station and hugged each other tightly. Yamaguchi then went to see a doctor who treated his wounds and gave him some medicine. He was told he would recover soon. He decided to go back to work on August 9. He felt he had a duty to do so, despite his injuries and trauma. He also wanted to show his boss that he was not crazy after telling him about the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. He arrived at his office around 8 a.m. and started explaining what he had seen in Hiroshima to his supervisor. His boss didn't believe him and thought he was hallucinating or lying. He said there was no such thing as an atomic bomb, and that one bomb could not destroy a whole city. As he was saying this, another American B-29 bomber flew over Nagasaki and dropped another atomic bomb. It exploded about 3 kilometers, 1.9 miles, away from Yamaguchi's office near the center of Nagasaki. It unleashed another devastating blast that destroyed most of the city and killed tens of thousands of people instantly. It also emitted intense heat and radiation that burned and poisoned many more. Yamaguchi was hit by another shockwave that knocked him to the ground and shattered the windows of his office. He was also exposed to another dose of radiation that damaged his cells and organs. He couldn't believe what was happening. He had just witnessed the second atomic bomb ever used in warfare. He got up and ran out of the building. He saw another mushroom cloud of fire rising in the sky over Nagasaki. He also saw another scene of horror around him. Buildings reduced to rubble, fires raging everywhere, people screaming and dying. He tried to find his way back to his home, hoping to find his family. He walked through the chaos and carnage for hours, dodging falling debris and avoiding corpses. He finally reached his house, where he found his wife and son. They had also survived the blast, but they were shocked to see him. They hugged each other tightly and thanked God for their miracle. They then decided to leave Nagasaki and go to a rural area where they had some relatives. They hoped to find some peace and safety there. They managed to escape the city and reached their destination after a few days. They stayed there for several months until the war ended and Japan surrendered. Yamaguchi was one of the very few people who survived both atomic bombings. He was also one of the very few who lived a long and productive life after that. He resumed his work with Mitsubishi and became a senior engineer. He also had 2 more children, a daughter and a son. He never talked about his experience for many years, as he felt ashamed and guilty for surviving while so many others died. He also suffered from various health problems such as chronic fatigue, cataracts, leukemia, and cancer. He lost most of his hair and hearing, and he had scars all over his body. He endured many surgeries and treatments, but he never gave up. He finally broke his silence in 1957 when he joined a group of hibakusha, or survivors of the atomic bombings, who were seeking recognition and compensation from the Japanese government. He became an outspoken advocate for nuclear disarmament and peace, and shared his story with the world. He wrote books, gave speeches, made documentaries, and even composed poetry about his ordeal. He also met with other survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as from other countries affected by nuclear weapons or tests. He received several honors and awards for his work, such as the Order of the Rising Sun from Japan, the Peace Prize for the United Nations Association of Japan, and the Nuclear Free Future Award from Germany. He also received an official recognition from the Japanese government as a survivor of both atomic bombings in 2009. After decades of struggle, he was the only person to have this distinction. He died of stomach cancer on January 4, 2010, at the age of 93. He was survived by his wife, 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. He left behind a legacy of courage, resilience, and hope. He also left behind a message for humanity. The only people who should be allowed to govern countries with nuclear weapons are mothers, those who are still breastfeeding their babies. This was the story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Thank you for watching this video. If you find this video valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.